This is episode 65 with Louis Cohn.
Welcome to Spot On Insurance. Join us each week as we speak to insurance professionals, attorneys, regulators, and compliance specialists on topics ranging from improving your agency to staying on the right side of the law. Subscribe and stay informed on the effects of new trends and disruptive emerging technologies on your businesses and your industry.
Welcome to the Spot On Insurance podcast. I'm Ted Tavares.
And this is Arlene Tavares.
My guest today is the president of Cohn Search Group. He specializes in the property and casualty insurance industry. He consistently ranks in the top 10 nationally of all P&C recruiters with an affiliated recruiting organization. Louis, welcome to Spot On Insurance.
Hi, Ted. Hi, Arlene. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. I'm so excited to talk about this subject, which is jobs. And Louis, you and I got to speak a couple of weeks ago, a little bit after the hurricane in Puerto Rico. And so our communication there wasn't that great. But I got to hear your background and your story. And I would love for you to share that today with our listeners, how you got involved with helping insurance professionals find their next opportunity.
Absolutely. I got into the recruiting business back in 2007 after graduating from the University of Arizona. And I always knew that I wanted to get into the recruiting business. I didn't know exactly what type of professionals I wanted to place, but I knew I wanted to get into recruiting. And I stumbled upon a recruiting firm that specialized in placing insurance professionals. And I went to work for them in their property and casualty division. And to say the least, I couldn't even spell insurance back in 2007. And some days today, I still can't spell it.
Yeah.
Not so good when it just totally changes our misspelling to something that's totally unrelated to what we're trying to get across.
Absolutely. So I got into the business in 2007, and we specialize in placing property and casualty professionals across the United States. We work with your mom and pop independent insurance agencies all the way up to your national and international insurance companies and everything in between, including program managers, wholesalers, and MGAs.
So tell me, Louis, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have in fulfilling these positions that are available?
Great question, Arlene. The biggest issue, or I'd say problem that we're running into the last really 3 to 5 years is an aging workforce in the insurance business. College grads, high school grads are not graduating and saying, I want to be an underwriter or I want to be a claims professional. They're going into technology, which of course has experienced a considerable boom since 2000. They're going into healthcare and they're going into commercial real estate or private equity. Now, with that being said, everybody still needs insurance, whether it be home, auto, insure a building, insure a transportation, bus fleet, whatever it might be. So it's still obviously a stable industry that's not going anywhere like you might see cyclical years in the private equity space or even healthcare with all the changes at the government level.
Well, I'll tell you, when we got into insurance, there was nothing in school that led us to the thought of working in the insurance industry. And I don't know if that's still the case, but when we were coming up 20 years ago, we were freelancing in New York and we stumbled on a company, Manette, where we were doing computer work for them. And that's how we got into the industry. We said, wow, there's a big opening here. There's lots of jobs. And that's the only way we found that, because it's in your face all the time and you don't think about the fact that they need cybersecurity. They have all this new technology. It's stuff that you don't think about.
And it's interesting because now I am just blown away by some of the coverages that our clients offer. You know, like some of them have just started to do insurance, not just started, but have an insurance agency because they are covering a risk about something that they're passionate about, like aviation, or we have some that are race car drivers, and now they have an agency for race car drivers. So it's really cool to see those people that they're passionate about something and they said, hey, you know, I actually didn't find great coverage or someone that really knew this risk well. And that's how they develop a new agency. And I just love it. There's weather insurance, there's insurance for everything. So it's pretty cool.
You're right. And it's fascinating that, to your point, related to, niche insurance, whether it be aviation or race car drivers or cyber tech or whatever it might be, it really truly is fascinating from the startup phase all the way to when you bind a coverage, in the sense of putting together the forms and analyzing and researching the risk and how to mitigate that risk and how to properly price the product. Insurance is an ever-changing field, especially today with technology and so many organizations in the insurance business being able to automate a lot of their processes as well as the coverages online or via the computer.
Right.
Okay, right now, where are the needs are? What's hot, hot, hot right now? If I'm looking for a job in the insurance industry, I'm looking to change what I'm doing.
You bet. The independent agency level, right? The hottest and always the hottest job for any independent agency owner is finding sales producers, professionals that can help the bottom line, drive growth of the agency organically by bringing in new business. Easier said than done, right?
Right.
There are how many independent agencies around the country? At least 25,000.
That's right.
So you're competing against, in any given market, 10, 12, 15 other independent agencies on some accounts to try to win their business. At the carrier level, the biggest need is in the underwriting space. It is becoming more and more difficult to attract seasoned, well-versed, trained underwriting professionals in any particular niche, whether it be primary casualty, whether it be environmental, and you name it. It's becoming more and more challenging for insurance companies not only to identify talent, which you would think would be a lot easier with social platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook and Indeed, to name a few, but not only to identify them, but to attract them. Organizations, specifically insurance companies, have had to get a lot more creative to retain talent, and it's becoming more difficult to recruit and pull professionals from their existing employer to a competitor.
And the thing is that these are really good paying jobs.
And they are, and they're stable, right? As I mentioned earlier in our conversation, the business owner that runs a 50-person contractor company, they're going to need work comp no matter what. That's not going away.
So tell us about employers and the weight that they place, let's say, on education versus experience versus good personality.
20, 25 years ago, and even 15 years ago, a college degree was a huge added bonus. Today, it's almost mandatory, especially on the insurance company side. It's becoming so competitive for these insurance companies to find talent that they want A players. And the majority of them want someone with a 4-year degree. Not only do they want the 4-year degree, they want insurance designations, whether it be the CRIS designation if they're specializing in construction risk, or an independent agency looking for a strong CSR account manager. They want them to come with designations, a CISR designation, or one of the other many designations out there, a CPCU for an underwriter on the carrier side. This just furthers their knowledge and education within the industry to better help them not only service their clients, but underwrite better risk.
So I think probably like a good strategy for a lot of employers is to get prospective hires early on, like as interns, and then even have them start working towards their designations while they're in college, right? So they step out of college and they already have the bling bling. That's a great candidate to have, and you're so prepared.
Absolutely. And when the recession hit in 2008, the majority of the insurance companies got rid of their training programs. It was an easy cost-cutting measure for these insurance companies when they were looking at their budget when the economy sank into really the worst depression we've probably seen since 1929,
Right.
although the one in the 80s was pretty darn close. So these insurance companies basically said, we're cutting our training program. And what happened with that are two things. Number one, it created a significant gap in the 30 to 45-year-old insurance professional. There are not that many insurance companies that have employees in that age gap because they stopped these training programs, which were very attractive to recent college grads. Now, over the last 18 to 24 months, you've seen a lot of these insurance companies refire back up their training program. And to your point, Arlene, it's a great mechanism for them to use to get warm bodies in the door that they can teach the company culture to, that they can give them an experience in multiple different units within an organization, where they can maybe be in the claims department for a month, where they can be in underwriting for a month, where they can be in even actuarial for a month, and really find what gets them excited and gets them up in the morning. And what the insurance company then can turn around and do is better pinpoint where that professional would fit in within the organization upon graduating for college and present an offer even before they graduate to work in one of those units in their training program. So it is very key to these insurance companies. And I think a lot of them have realized that over the last couple of years that they have to fire these training programs back up to attract recent college grads.
Well, you're able to identify talent and then develop it.
Absolutely. And that is so key today. Everyone all these underwriters at insurance companies, they know how to underwrite, but that's only half the battle, and sometimes even less than half the battle. It's finding someone that fits within your company culture and knows how to interact with not only the employees, but the clientele in a way that will drive business and growth for the organization.
I remember going back about 25 years, Arlene and I were working at Chemical Bank. We were doing, well, you were working full time at that point, and I was doing some freelance work there. But they had a training program that was about 2 years, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it was a circuit. The person came in and they went to different departments and learned about the different things. And I think it's so that they could put the round peg in a round hole. They wanted to find where you belonged. And you also got an opportunity after those 2 years to decide, hey, I really want to work in that area. I really want to work in this area. But you took that time to learn the business.
Well, and absolutely. And, another thing that's also very important to that is when you say learning the business, let's say a intern does do that circuit and they get a chance to get exposure to claims and underwriting and actuarial. And that intern ends up going into underwriting. For them to have a good base understanding of the claims process and how the claims professionals think, they're going to be that much more valuable on the underwriting side because they're going to understand the full circle of how the insurance industry works.
Yes.
Absolutely. We try to do that internally at our company. We have about 65 employees. And what we find is that they come in, they don't know, perhaps they don't have a background in licensing. Most people don't. But whatever area they start out in, let's say it's license renewals, well, that becomes their comfort zone. So when they hear people in the surplus lines tax filing department talk, or people that do all the registrations with the Secretary of State, they're like, I don't want to go into that department. Well, lo and behold, those are our best employees. We push them out of their comfort zone. We move them into other departments. They become a much more valuable employee. They become much more valuable to our clients because they're able to just talk to them about all of the facets that that client has. So it behooves us to move our people around also to our different departments.
Absolutely.
I wanted to talk about a person that's interested in making a change in the insurance industry. What's the first step in perhaps that they start having that conversation with you, Louis, and they want to just kind of explore what's out there for them?
So, of course, the first thing we ask is that they share their resume with us so we can get a 30,000-foot overview of who this person is from a professional standpoint, what they're about, and where they want to go in their career. Until we can understand the motivations and what gets this professional up in the morning and what their qualifications are, we're not going to be of much assistance. So we try to communicate to them to the best of our ability. What are they looking for? What motivates them? And what are they looking for in a new employer? And once we can figure out that information, we can do a much better job of telling them where we can be of assistance to them in the market.
Spot On is sponsored by Insurance Licensing Services of America. Need help with corporate name changes, annual returns, or surplus lines tax filings? Feeling overwhelmed? If you're looking for experts in regulatory compliance, you've come to the right place. ILSA provides the industry with over 50 services. To learn more about the company and how they can help, visit ilsainc.com.
Great. And how do those resumes look when you first take a look at them? Are they just like perfect?
Not always. Not always, Arlene. I would say 75% of the time they are pretty darn good. A lot of times, Arlene, when we get resumes from professionals, they haven't had the chance to really sit down and take time to really update it and make sure to get all their experience and expertise on the resume. A resume really is what we like to call it, or the analogy we like to use is when you go out to dinner, the resume is the appetizer. It gives the employer just enough information to want them to stay for dinner. And the stay for dinner, of course, is getting them a face-to-face interview where they can sit down and really give them, rather than the 30,000-foot overview, but give them a real in-depth overview of their qualifications and their personality.
Good. What about if someone's been out of the marketplace or has been at their current position for a while, let's say 7, 8 years, and now they're looking for their next opportunity and they haven't really done much in terms of interviewing? They probably a little bit scared to just going out there and sitting face to face.
Arlene, it is and can be very scary for these professionals. It's really twofold. The first and foremost reason why it can be nerve-wracking or scared for these professionals is they're still employed and they don't want their employer to find out that they're interviewing with most likely a competitor of their current employer. So coaching them through the fact that everything is confidential and that they shouldn't have anything to worry about is part of the value we try to bring to these professionals. The second part of that answer would be they don't have interview practice. They're not used to sitting across a room talking about themselves for 45 minutes or an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So coaching them on listening twice as much as they talk and letting the employer or the interviewee do a lot of the talking and making sure not to jump in or interrupt or twiddle your fingers or whatever it might be,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure to make good eye contact are some of the key points that we try to tell professionals that maybe haven't gone on an interview in 7, 10, 12 years.
Do you have any professionals that when it comes time to turn in that resignation that they are reluctant to do so?
Absolutely. And the famous phrase that my father, who's been in the recruiting business for 35 years, has always reminded me, and we still use this line today, is you can lead a horse to water, you can't make the horse drink from the water. It truly resonates in the recruiting space when professionals are looking to make a move. When push comes to shove, there's a comfort level at their current employer. Even though they might be unhappy for one reason or another, they're still going to an unknown. And they might have had 2, 3, 4 interviews with their potentially new employer, but they're still an unknown. Will I get along with my new employees? Will the company culture fit in with what my personality is? So we try to do our best to coach them on the resignation process, as it's much cheaper, as you guys know, to pay an employee that's turning in their notice to stay versus go out and try to hire someone new and train them and get them up to speed.
Correct.
Mhm.
So we try to do everything we can to coach these insurance professionals on not entertaining a counteroffer, because if they've got to the very end with a potential employer and they've received an offer that they're comfortable with and they turn in their notice, they've obviously made up their mind that this is best for them and their families.
Right.
Mhm. So let's say you've groomed them, they're doing great on interviews, and you send them to lots of different prospective employers and they get numerous offers. How do they handle that? I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, so, and obviously that would be an ideal situation. We try here at Cohn Search Group to not create competition for our clients when we can, right?
Right.
We never try to submit the same candidate on multiple openings until we know that that employer has decided that they're not interested in that individual. But in the cases where that does happen, we coach them through what is the best long-term fit for you. Put money aside. Money isn't always happiness. What is the best long-term fit for you, and where do you see yourself in 10, 15 years? If you see yourself at company A, you should strongly consider taking that job. If you see yourself at company B for the next 15, 20 years, that's where you should go. So coaching them through things other than just talking about money are areas that we try to focus on.
Can you give us some numbers? For example, I was recently on a different interview talking about cybersecurity, and one of the guys said that there's about 2 million jobs in cybersecurity that they cannot fill. Do you have any numbers on the different areas of insurance where that's also the case, where you're seeing that they really have good openings and people should be concentrating on those?
Yeah, so on any given day, week, or month, there are tens of thousands of insurance openings across the country. At the insurance company level, underwriters are probably the biggest need. Really underwriting and claims, but underwriting in particular is probably the biggest need today, and really has been for the last 10 years I've been in the business. Just like on the independent agency side, the underwriters are the ones that are driving business within the organization. And these professionals need to be personable, but also analytical. And the combination of those two are sometimes very hard to find.
Yeah.
If I was a professional looking to get into the insurance space, I would focus my time on getting in on the underwriting side of the house.
Okay. And you mentioned underwriting and claims. Last week, Ted and I were meeting with the insurance commissioner and deputy insurance commissioners of Puerto Rico, and they were expressing to us how there are, like 600,000 claims and only like 20,000 adjusters available, and of course, when you have situations like we had in 2017, where you got hit with all of these storms, Harvey, then Irma, then Maria, you had all of these insurance adjusters that were already busy handling all these claims that you couldn't import them into Puerto Rico, so definitely.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And no pun intended, it was the perfect storm. And I hate to use that phrase because those few months were very tough and hard and sad for really the whole world, and especially the United States.
Yes.
But, typically when storm season rolls around, we don't see 2, 3, 4 major U.S. cities and states get hit like they did all at once.
Yeah.
Right.
And when that happens, there are not enough claims adjusters or CAT teams in the world to handle them all. But you're right. I mean, there's no way for them all to, unless we could clone ourselves, that's probably the only way we could get to handling all of them. But, again, back to my earlier point with how technology has really changed the insurance industry with the automation and really just technology in general of being able to do everything at the click of a button. That's really helped expedite these CAT claims professionals' responsibilities to get claims paid and get people back on their feet.
Want to talk about squirrely candidates?
Squirrely candidates. And I know, Arlene, you and I talked about that when we first talked. Squirrely candidates. And this goes back to, kind of goes hand in hand. It's kind of the brother-sister relationship with resignation.
Yeah.
When we engage passive candidates, or when any recruiting firm engages passive candidates, there's always a chance that we get a quote-unquote squirrely candidate where they're fishing for something, whether it be money or a work from home or whatever it might be, and they end up getting squirrely through the interview process where they will go on multiple interviews and then withdraw their name or not even return phone calls to the employer.
Oof.
And of course, yes, as hard as that is to believe. And it's part of our job as a recruiter to do our best to weed out those squirrely candidates. Easier said than done. We can ask all the right questions and screen these professionals with all the tools we have at our disposal. And again, at the end of the day, we're dealing with people, and people are going to do what they want to do regardless of all the coaching they receive from us.
And that's just people's personalities, right? Like people are fearful. You'll have other people that are like, no, I'm ready for the next opportunity and I'm going to take it and they're going to move on.
It sounds like in this case, they can't make up their mind what they want.
Yeah.
And to the defense of the candidate, there's a few things in life, Arlene and Ted, and I know both of you know this from being a business owner and hiring professionals. There are a few things in life that are kind of at the very top of everyone's list. Family, of course, over everything. Mm-hmm. Their career and buying a home. Those are the three biggest things or decisions that an individual will make in their life. And of course, marrying, but that falls into the family category. You spend more time at your profession and at your employer than a lot of times that you spend with your own family.
Right.
So the decision to make a move from company A to company B is a life-changing move and experience, and it affects everything at home. It affects you financially. And so it's a big decision for these professionals to take that leap of faith and leave their comfort zone from their current work environment and their employer to, again, a possible unknown of, am I going to fit in with this company? Am I going to like my manager? Am I going to get along with my coworkers? That's a constant struggle that we deal with, is candidates making the decision, do I really want to take this leap of faith? And a lot of times it seems very easy. And then we get to the end, and going back to the squirrely candidate, they go home, they talk to their spouse or their significant other and their family, and they decide it's not the best thing for the family at the time. And that does happen, and that's completely okay.
Yeah. So with the rapidly developing technological changes that we're seeing in our industry, what opportunities are there for insurance professionals from your perspective?
Well, and this goes back to the education point. The younger generations, of course, are very tech savvy, and they can get around on a computer as good as anybody. But insurance professionals need to do anything and everything they can to understand technology and the purpose and role it plays within the insurance space. There's a time and place for it. It's great for quoting and binding. It's great for communicating with clients, but we still need that face-to-face and phone-to-phone communication that we've always done. And educating yourself, taking classes, whether it be in Excel, whether it be on one of the agency management softwares, anything related to improving your ability to be as efficient as possible on the computer and with technology, the faster you're going to get ahead within the organization you're at.
Okay. So we like to wrap it up with our beam of light or our advice for our circle of insurance professionals. Let's say that someone considers that their age is preventing them from finding a job. Either because they find that they might be too young or they find that they are a bit too mature, let's say. What piece of advice would you give them?
Absolutely. Hitting on their experience. Experience trumps everything, regardless of age, whether you're on the back end of your career, you're just starting out in your career, to make sure to highlight your experience and expertise and where your relationships lie. And that includes not only doing it on the resume, but doing it when you're meeting with these potential employers and really making sure that you have a bullet point checklist of why you are valuable to that employer, regardless of where you are at in your career, whether it be you have 5 years until you retire or you have 35 years until you retire.
If someone in our circle of insurance professional wants to get in touch with you, wants to know more, how do they do that?
So our firm is Cohn Search Group. We're based in Overland Park, Kansas. Our website is www.cohn, C-O-H-N, searchgroup.com. You can also reach us at 913-402-1400.
I would just like to thank Louis Cohn for sharing some of the hottest jobs in the insurance industry.
Be sure and join us next week when we will be speaking to Stephen Goldstein. Stephen is the Managing Director for Pivot Ventures US, advising insurtech startups on their sales strategies and go-to-market initiatives. That's episode 66 of Spot On Insurance.
Louis, thank you so much for your time with myself and Ted.
It was truly my pleasure, guys.
Visit spotoninsurance.com, where you'll discover an ever-growing library of podcasts, videos, articles, and online tools by professionals for professionals to enhance your insurance education. By the way, that's where you'll also find our podcast notes and bonus resources. Please don't forget to click the iTunes link to rate and review, and let others know what you think of Spot On Insurance. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next week.